Let's start the presentation. Hello, my name is Янг Ки Kim, and my presentation is the necessity of a new type of philosophical counseling on understanding the problem of the counseling through the details first of the tragedy. Before starting, I'd like to say first, because of the time limit, I'm going to focus on only the important thing. Let's start the presentation. That's index. In this presentation, I will examine the existing methodological model in philosophical counseling, the peace model by Lou Marinoff, the first step model by Peter Rapp, and the perspective therapy RUSM model by Янг Kim. It is to see if there have been sufficient consideration of the counseling's problem. Philosophical counseling has been started in 1981 by Gert Einbach. Philosophical counseling is like other philosophical practice, doing philosophy, but without counseling. But unlike psychological counseling or psychoanalysis, philosophical counseling is philosophical counseling does not consider certain problem as disease. If then, why do philosophical counseling do philosophy with them? It is to understand the counseling's problem of life and to help to get over the pain it causes. If so, we have to ask the question now, 30 years of philosophical counseling. Do we have sufficiently tried to understand counseling's problem? And do we have really efficient methodology to do that? Doing philosophy is not easy. Because if we can apprehend the real problem in the counseling's pain, it can cause more pain rather than the help. Lou Marinoff presents a peace model. Peace consists of 5 stages: problem, emotion, analysis, contemplation, and equilibrium. Among these is step 1 to address understanding of the problem. At the stage of the problem should be recognizable. In order to recognize a problem, we must recognize the phenomenon first. What is the phenomenon? It means that it exists separately from one's belief, feeling, and desire. So we must decide first if the phenomenon is really serious or not. At this stage of the problem, it should just be in the problem and be able to recognize itself separately from the problem that the counseling has. The second stage, emotion, aims to identify one's emotional reaction in front of the problem. The emotional experience is a psychological reaction, which means that recognizing one psychological reaction that must be struck separately. In other words, the perception of emotion does not lead to the control of emotion immediately. In a peace model, my question is that this all stage accentuate the rational side of a human being. Mr. Marinoff talked about rational thinking and the importance of a conversation. For example, peace of mind can be obtained through the meditation, not drug. And for this, it is required to have clear and sharp thinking ability. And moreover, like Descartes, Mr. Marinoff said everyone can think. The first model by Peter Robb is focused on the way to reinforce the counselee to avoid future problems and solve them by themselves. This method is first step imposes us to enter into critical reflection during the philosophical dialogue with the counselor in order to gain some philosophical sense for our everyday living. This course, the first step model consisting of free-floating, immediately problem resolutions, teaching as an intentional act, and transcendence. The first step, free-floating, in which we speak freely, will open the door to understanding the person and his problem by the midwifery reasoning power of the counselor. And in this free speech process, the counselee can feel catharsis. Speaking freely without any oppression to confess is very important in the condition that it offers the counselee to experience catharsis. But the first step model is based on language and the educational system. So it's very difficult to say through the method of free floating to develop the burst of sense and emotion. In philosophy counseling, taking a rational approach to an understanding of the counselee's problem is equivalent to taking only one branch to approach the problem. Keeping one and single point of view will not provide all the facets of a human being and their problem. Янг Ки Kim argued that every person has his or her one perspective. The perspective plays an important role in every day, and we suffer from the fixed perspective. Then, how can we make ourselves free from the fixed perspective? Янг Ки Kim presents the first stage of perspective therapy, that is the philosophical attempt to treat the emotion and intellectual suffering with the help thinking about the perspective. The perspective therapy consists of 4 steps: perspective reflection, perspective understanding, perspective sympathy, and perspective merging. Before entering the clinical period merging, 3-stage RUS admit helping us to recognize our problem as a problem. First of all, the perspective reflection stage is to look at the perspective of life, value, and worldview of the person who is captivating the counselee in enough through the reflection was one point of view, the central point of view. The point of view understanding step is to understanding the origin of the identified point of view reflection step that occur in the counselee. What is important in determining the origin of the problem perspective is to understand the internal context and the external context in which it is questioned. The stage of perspective sympathy is the psychological understanding of a problem perspective. If the first and second stage were to understand the point of view, the third stage of a perspective sympathy is to understand and empathize with emotional pain. If peace model and first step model approach the counselee's understanding of the problem only from a rational point of view, perspective therapy has strength to expand understanding of the problem from a rational point of view to an emotional point of view. However, perspective therapy also has a limitation that in order to understanding the counselee's problem, one must first go through the stage of rational reflection and rational understanding. It is necessary to understand the new aspect of a matter in order to overcome the understanding of the rational aspect-oriented problem of the counseling. This presentation is based on the classification of ancient Greek tragedy in Nietzsche's book, The Birth of Tragedy. Nietzsche presents three types of the tragedy: Dionysos' first art, the first tragedy, and Apollon's second art, second tragedy, and Attica's third art, third tragedy. In the first art of Dionysos, the first tragedy, each other is integrated into one. What makes this possible is self-forgetting through Dionysos. It is not the rational language, but the dance and the song that make it possible for each other to understand each other. This symbolic system of dance and song make it possible to understand other people's emotion. In other words, the first tragedy consists of non-verbal dancing and singing, and it's characterized by the importance of physical and emotional things instead of the rational things. Self-awareness will be possible in Apollon's second art, the second tragedy. What is considered important in the second tragedy is the rational activity of the actor mind and the self-awareness. In other words, the second tragedy values rationality and is characterized by language and speech. In Attica's third art, the third tragedy, the first and second tragedy occur at the same time. In the third art tragedy, the first tragedy, which value emotion and physical thing, and the second tragedy, which value rational and linguistic things, coexist together. It can be seen that there are various types of the ancient Greek tragedy. Based on this different form of tragedy, an understanding of the issue of internal counseling in philosophical counseling can also be considered in various aspects. First of all, it is important to recognize the problem you have in the problem peace model by Rachmaninoff, which is based on rational ability. So it can be considered as second counseling. The fact that the emotion stage is the stage of recognizing one's emotion based on reason also shows that the peace model is progressing based on reason understanding of the problem. The first step model, first stage of free floating may seem like the first type of the counseling that focused on building rapport with the counselee at the first glance, but that is also close to the second type of the counseling that value rationality. Because first of all, first model say that the free-speaking experience record of the counselee at this stage is based on the linguistic ability of the counselee, and that what my representative can gain from the free-speaking experience is catharsis. Catharsis is a term derived from Aristotle's concept of tragedy, which means to induce pleasure based on fear and compassion. Also recurred in the free-floating phase of philosophy counselor is the procedure of midwifery reasoning, which is rational reasoning to elicit critical reflection. What we can see from this is that peace and the first model are taking the form of second counseling that value of a rational and linguistic part of the understanding of the problem of counseling. In perspective therapy, the third counseling aspect seems strong. In the case of perspective reflection and perspective understand, the same as the peace and first model, the second counseling centered on the rationality of the counseling. But not staying here, the first counseling that psychologically emphasized with the counseling point of view. In other words, perspective therapy is the type of counseling that encompasses both the first and second counseling. However, even if perspective therapy pursue a type of third counseling, it can be seen as a type of third counseling with strong Apollon power rather than compatible with Dionysos and Apollon. Since Socrates' physical and emotional aspect, non-verbal and artistic aspect of philosophy have been marginalized and shunned. So, only when the Dionysian aspect or strengthened will the type of counseling in the true sense be possible. Therefore, what we should pursue in the future will be the aspect of the type of the first counseling that has been weakened in the existing philosophy. Now, I'll finish my presentation and thank you for listening my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have about 10 minutes for your question, maybe comment in the one, please.
Have any question? Please ask me.
Please, colleague, if you want, we can write down your question or comments in chat. Please, Anu.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. Just quite a general question for you. I would like to know what was your reason for this topic? What motivates you in this relation of tragedy and philosophical consultation?
This motivation is, I think, that philosophical counseling is different from the psychological counseling and self-healing. And if his problem is truly understand, counseling can find answer to it themselves. That understanding must be emotional. But now, philosophical counseling only rational things. So I think the rational thing is of course important, but I think emotional thing is important the same.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good question.
It's also my question is that we have now a very interesting direction of philosophical practice, philodrama. Philodrama. It's as example, Mike wrote explore this direction. What this approach, philodrama, connects with your understanding, your explanation of this approach connects with your approach, your understanding.
First, I started on Nietzsche, and Nietzsche's aspect, three type of tragedy. So I integrated Nietzsche's tragedy and philosophy methodology. Yeah.
Okay, great. In this theoretical level. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for good question.
Okay, colleague, thank you, Янг Ки Ким, for your lecture, short lecture, for your explanation, for your very interesting topic. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And now we have a break time due to the fact the previously announcements speakers cannot take part, unfortunately. And meet again here at 20:30 Moscow time. Thank you. See you soon.
I'm sorry, but actually there's one question in the chat.
Oh,
Would there still be...
sorry.
Oh, catalysis is very interesting.
Catalysis is very interesting concept. But really not sure what. Please wait a minute.
Okay. Yeah. Good question. Okay.
Clarification to fear and pity.
I didn't think that far, but that's good question. So I consider more about that in a follow-up study.